Welcome to the With Clarity and Purpose podcast with your host, Yanet Borrego. Each week, I bring you an inspiring person or message to empower you to live life on your terms so you can be who you want to be, do what you are meant to do, and have the life you deserve to have. We will provide you with practical and cutting-edge approaches to continue getting clarity and direction on your path, mastering your mindset, and gaining confidence to tap into your inner wisdom so you can live on purpose. Welcome to another episode of the With Clarity and Purpose podcast. And today I have a super special guest with me, Dr. Amber Gunner. And we are gonna talk about a powerful, transformational, and very relatable topic. One that I was telling Dr. Amber, I'm right now struggling with, okay? And this topic is about burnout. Dr. Amber Gunner, so excited to have you. How are you doing?
I am actually doing pretty good. I have had a last busy few weeks and getting to my point of where it's time for me to start slowing down as well. And so I'm happy to be here to have this conversation and to show everybody that, we all have to navigate through this. And it really comes down to our practices, our honesty, our truth with ourselves, and then the willingness to trust that we really can slow down.
I love that so much. And to give all the listeners a quick introduction, Dr. Amber Gunner, she helps moms avoid burnout by building allies so they can continue their career success. As a mom of two, former corporate VP, and now an amazing entrepreneur, she's sharing her own journey through burnout. And when we started recording this podcast episode, I was telling Dr. Amber how exhausted I feel. And usually when I introduce, guests, I never stumble. I mean, that's not something to be impressed by. It's just like, I am very fluid. Like, I don't take it too seriously. But today I stumbled just by introducing her and I had to start over. And I'm like, please forgive me because I'm just exhausted. And she was holding space and she was saying, should we record this podcast episode on a different day? And I think we both share this value of integrity and honesty. And because, we are going through also these moments where we need to rest and reset. We want to show up like that for all of you, for all the listeners, because we also go through these moments where we need to take a moment and reflect and see what we need to nurture ourselves. Thank you so much for being here, Amber. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate you being willing to show up, in that exhaustion and also acknowledging that you will rest after this. So I'm going to hold you to that.
I have a client at 5 and I'm like, from the end of this interview until 5, I'm gonna rest. But I want to know, and I want all the listeners to know about your journey. What was your journey of finding that purpose to serve women and moms in their burnout journey? And what was your experience with burnout yourself? I cannot wait because I know this episode is gonna be super juicy.
Yes. Are y'all ready?
Yes, we are. Give us everything. This is unfiltered. This is raw. Let's go.
Oh, man. I love to tell this story because it continues to be a humbling experience. As an entrepreneur, as a corporate VP, as a doctor, as a mom, my story really shows and illustrates that I'm no different. I am no different than what we are all navigating and struggling through. And I think the difference was really that I just said, I'll do it. I will be the one who helps moms see through this and find a way to continue their careers. So my journey actually started really in about 2016 at the end of the year. In the same week that I found out I was having my second baby, I'd gotten laid off from my job.
That's great.
And that sent me into probably one of the darkest times that I've experienced. Depression, to put it lightly. I was definitely contemplating suicide, which is hard. It was really hard because I was pregnant and I was aware of what that meant, the implications of that. And I'm grateful that I spoke up. I told my husband at the time, I said, something's going on. I need you to take me to the OB. And I was able to share with her, how I was feeling and what I was going through. And she ended up deciding to put me on some antidepressant medication that would be safe for me as well, as for the baby, because I knew that I wanted to be here. I knew that I wanted to live. And I knew that I was just having a really, really, really hard time in doing so. And interestingly enough, getting off of those antidepressants became my goal because I knew it wasn't something that I wanted to have to stay on, but I accepted the reality of where I was. And that became my mission, from that time that I found out I was pregnant and getting on those meds up until, having my baby. We hired a doula. Because I was not working at the time, I was able to spend a lot of time at the gym. I love swimming. And they say that, swimming is really good while you're pregnant. And so that was what I did. I swam probably like 3 or 4 times a week. I met with this doula, and that really kind of became my introduction into just like really caring for my body. And so with the things she was teaching me, in addition to, being on the medication and having some exercise, that really became my time to focus on my mental health, focus on my mental wellness. And I didn't see it as such at the time. Of course, I just wanted to stay healthy and I wanted to be able to have this baby. And, thankfully I did. I had my son that summer. He was healthy, and I felt like a new woman. I felt like a new woman. I had just overcome this very, dark time in my life, and I jumped into work. I had this job where I was traveling for work. We'd hired a live-in nanny, and so she was taking care of the baby as well as my daughter. And I was traveling. I was gone. Literally, I know majority of what the nursing rooms in most airports look like because I was pumping in just about every one of them. And that was like my life for a year. And something happened. It dawned on me through a joke that I would tell when I would go and travel and do these workshops, because they were in-person workshops. And I would tell them, I would say, thank you so much for having me. Because you all have had me here, I had a hot shower, I had a good night's rest, I had my food while it was hot, naming all these things. They would laugh. We would do the workshop. It would be so much fun. I'd go back home for a little bit and then get back on the road. I did not realize that in telling that joke, I was identifying all the boundaries that I did not have in my life and in motherhood to help me feel safe and nourished and rested in that journey. I was literally running into work and was running from, my past situation of just giving birth to my son and going through that, that I ran myself right into burnout. And to give you an idea, in 1 year's time, I traveled to Hawaii 3 times and the Virgin Islands.
Wow.
That was just some of my larger trips. I was literally maybe at home for 4 or 5 days and then back out there again, come back. I mean, and just like, and doing that for almost a year before it was just like, and let me not forget, completing my dissertation, defending that so that I could graduate in time with, my doctorate degree. And so it was a lot. It was a lot unconsciously unaware that was happening and going on. And so as that burnout really started sinking in, of course, I recognized that I needed some help. I was someone who had been in therapy since I was 18. And so I really kind of felt exhausted with therapy. I felt like we'd kind of reached to the point that we needed to. And I ended up getting into a 1.5 year long coaching program. And within that program, I had multiple different coaches, but this type of environment was really centered on women. It was really centered on helping them feel whole within who they are and what it is that they need. And lo and behold, that would uncover so much stuff for me to have to deal with. But I had one of my coaches and she was like, you need to take care of yourself. And I was like, I mean, literally stunted by the question or by her recommendation even, because I didn't know what she meant by that. I didn't know how to do that, but it stuck with me. And it stuck with me so much that I started unearthing that. And the reason I went into working with moms and working in this field or in this passion is because I discovered it. I recognized that we have been taught really to take care of everything outside of us. And we typically say, well, I don't have time for me or to do the things that I want to do. And while that may very well be true, I recognized and I figured out that when I made the time, when I reversed it and I took care of me first, literally everything else worked itself out.
Totally. I think, and I see it with my clients all the time, and some of them are mom. We also have this belief that we need to sacrifice ourselves to please others, which doesn't make any sense because we are the foundation. I mean, that's why in an airplane, you put your mask on first so you can help others. But it is true. I think there is so much baggage, from the past generationally also that women have been carrying around of we need to overgive, we need to overcommit, we need to overplease. And then we run this pattern of overdoing everything to make others feel better or take care of others. So I think your journey
Absolutely.
is truly inspirational and so empowering and so healing to hear your story, really. Now, I am super curious with this, okay? Because I know my own experience. How did you start realizing I need to do something about, okay, when did you start realizing and when did you do something about it? Because that gap can be years or months. And I know what that has looked like for me. So how was that for you of something, I need to do something about it and actually doing something about it?
Yeah. And I think, as you know, there's an area of your life that's being affected and you go and seek support, for that. And then it kind of uncovers all these other things.
Totally.
So I initially started getting coaching around my marriage, around my partnership, and then just like I have clients that come in, it's like, it's them,
Oh, yeah.
and it's like, well, let's just look at you for a moment and let's just
Exactly.
see,
Yeah.
and then it's like, holy shit, it's me. It's me.
Yeah.
It's like that song, it's me, I'm the problem.
Yeah, because the outside is a projection of what's going on within ourselves. Now, if you're in an abusive, toxic relationship, this is very different than what we are talking
Absolutely.
about. But
Absolutely.
this is more about being empowered to take control.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that.
And once I started, receiving the coaching and we really started looking at things, it was very clear that there were actions and things that I needed to take. And I started doing it. I started doing it immediately. I had started really repairing my family first, and not necessarily my partner, but the relationship that I have with my mom and with my dad was the very first step for me in that part of that journey. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful to see my own growth of how I viewed family and how I viewed my upbringing. And now to be able to bring healing into that space, so much so today to where my mom is one of my strongest allies, one of my biggest cheerleaders. And people say all the time, it's like, oh, you're so lucky you have your mom. And, and that is very true. And I also want people to know that took healing. That took a lot of work on both sides. She had to be willing to lean in and do this work, her own work, alongside of me also, doing mine. And what it has created is this really beautiful reciprocal relationship that extends beyond just being mother and daughter. And that, I think, is what I'm most grateful for. But had I not started looking at that and being willing to do that work, me solely continuing to blame her was not going to get us to where we are today. And so, I initially was looking at my partnership, my marriage that I was in, and it ended up unearthing the roots, the relationship with my mom and my dad. And so bringing that in to where we are today.
I think that's very insightful, because there is not a single person that I have worked with that one of the things that we worked on healing was a relationship with their parents. And when I look back at the data, for whatever reason, the mom is the one that is most common. And I mean, I can totally relate to that, because my mom lives with me and my husband, and we have been together, I mean, most of my life. So it was a process, like you said, of letting go of that blame. And the day I did that, I truly became empowered. I truly took responsibility for my reality. So I think that is so powerful, Amber. So tell me about burnout. Okay, what were the signs of burnout? Like, what were the signs? Because I'm deeply curious about that, because I like to gather this information and compare with mine.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'll share with you the 4 top ones, especially as it relates to parents and moms. Some of them will be a little bit different based on like work or life. But in terms of when we're looking at parental burnout, we start out with the exhaustion. So that physical and that emotional exhaustion is usually a big, big component of that burnout. The second thing we're going to look at is in relation to our children. Are we feeling detached? Are we feeling irritable? Are 2 of the also biggest signs that we are operating within burnout. The third thing is, how pleasurable are we still finding our interactions with our children? Do we still do some of the things that, used to really help in bonding us? And just quick tip here, if you can find things that you as the parent and your child equally enjoy, that can support in decreasing those levels of burnout.
I
Not
think
only are you doing something that you enjoy, the child is also doing something that they enjoy, and the two of you are doing it together. And then the last one that you want to look at is that when people kind of talk about, I don't feel like myself. I don't feel like I'm showing up in parenting in a way that I desire or how I've shown up in the past. I feel really disconnected from that. Those are usually the top 4 things that you want to be able to take a look at in terms of your burnout as it relates to being a parent.
what I love about this framework is that, I mean, clearly it's for parents, but it also applies to people who don't have kids, because I'm like, yeah, I feel that way. I'm like, I'm going, and even with my relationship, I'm like, things that we both enjoy. Got it. Like, I'm applying it to everything in my life while you're talking.
Absolutely. And
Yeah,
that's what I love about doing this work, is because, you know, my focus is on moms and parents and helping them to build allies. But something that always happens is those allies are like, man, I needed this. I needed this workshop just as much as the mom or the parent that I'm here to support. I needed this. And we do. We all do.
I love that so much. And let's touch on something, right? Because we as human beings, we tend to compare, right? And there are people that are like, you should work 4 days a week. And there are people, no, you should work. I mean, mainly if you have a business, you should work 7 days a week. And from my perspective, and this is my perspective, there is not a black or white method to this. I think it's you trusting your own body, because every person can be so different. So how do you approach this when people are like, I'm feeling tired, but it's not that I've been working 15 hours a day. Like, why is this happening to me? Like, how do you approach that when people are like, well, maybe it doesn't make sense in my mind, but my body is telling me I'm tired?
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, like we said, that exhaustion mentally and physically is usually the first big indication. And I think really we have to have a relationship with our body to know what it's telling us and to know when we are pushing past our limits. Prior to burnout, I just did not have those boundaries within myself. I wasn't aware enough of my body to even know. And I don't, you know, run my life in a way that is like, well, what is everybody saying that I should be doing? I'm really in tune with what are the things that I said I needed to do this week, and measuring that with how is my body feeling about what we've done so far and how much more it's actually able to do. And I think part of that has been, because I am a visionary, really and truly, it starts with how do I see myself showing up in entrepreneurship, in motherhood, in partnership, right? How do I see myself visually? How do I visualize that? And then how does that feel in my body? And then I measure that against. So it's like I have my own internal compass. You know, if I know that reading to my kids, taking them to get ice cream or taking them to the park are things that are important to me, and we haven't been able to really do that lately, then what is it that is getting in the way of the vision that I hold for myself in motherhood? Is it that I'm spending too much time in my business? Is it that I haven't asked for enough support so that I can do some of those things? So that's why, you know, it is, they say that comparison is the thief of joy. Yeah. And I could see that because it's really hard to compare yourself to somebody else because the circumstances, you know, are not going to be at all the same. The people are not the same. Their needs are not the same. And when we develop the ability to learn our body, be aware of what we're feeling, and then set that vision for what we want this to look and feel like, then I think that's really how we can determine when we're pushing past our limits.
And I think also like the beauty of coaching, and we are both coaches, the beauty of coaching is guiding the individual on getting to know themselves, on how to think by themselves, rather than telling them what to think or what method they should or not follow. Is all about trusting their own body, their intuition, their transformation. So I think it's really beautiful
Absolutely.
that you're working on this space.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not a mom yet, but I want to be soon. And sometimes I'm working on my business and I'm like, I'm just stuck. Honestly, this week I'm tired. So I'm just communicating what I feel, right? But I'm just like tired. And I'm like, imagine that I have a daughter or a son, or a daughter and a son. How can you, and I want you to tell me your experience or what you have seen, how can you show up in an empathetic and compassionate way towards yourself and give the best to your kids when you're just feeling, I don't know, like exhausted? How does that work? You tell me, because I haven't experienced that yet.
And I'm nodding because yes, it is often. And you want to communicate your truth.
To your kids.
Always.
I love it.
Always.
That's beautiful.
And so what I do with them is I let them know, mommy has been working. I'm really tired. I'm going to stop and get us some dinner. And then I'm going to go and lay down for a little bit because I'm tired. And typically with that, they will be so understanding. They will often say, well, mommy, do you need anything? Do you need a hug? Do you need us to bring you water? Do you need us to rub your feet? And it's like, no, I don't need any of that. And on occasions I will say, yes, I need a hug.
Yeah, I was thinking, yes, please, I need.
Yeah. Depending on, really what it is. But really, it's being able to communicate with them that I am not always this mom that can take us to go get popsicles and do all these other things, that sometimes I need to be able to rest and just lay down. And they honor it. They appreciate that I'm communicating it with them. And I think the best thing that happens is that it gives them permission to also do and experience the same thing.
I think that's powerful. I think that's the most important thing, like you said.
Absolutely. My daughter will come home and she'll say, Mom, I'm really just kind of tired. Is it okay if I lay down for a little bit before I start my homework? Absolutely. Take care of yourself. Do what you need to do, because I trust and I know that you will also get done the other things. And as moms, we really have to understand how much we model for them, which again is why I'm doing the work that I do, because so many moms will come to me exhausted, right? And then we'll start talking about just self-care, and we'll get into that story of like, did you see this growing up? And it's like light bulb moment. Like, no wonder I don't know how to do it or what it looks like, because I haven't had that modeled, which now creates an opportunity for you to learn alongside of your child, for you all to do this together, and for them to see you taking care of yourself. And so it's all about us really being able to communicate that and being open to our children seeing us be vulnerable, to them seeing those aspects of us. Do they know that their mother is strong and she's accomplished and she's beautiful? They know all of those things. And they also know that I still get tired, that I still cry, that sometimes I'm having a bad day. And they create space for that, which I'm grateful for. And I think that in that truth, in that communication, creates a bond. It creates that intimacy with our children that they can trust and they can respect, and that this is also a safe space for them to take care of their needs.
That is so powerful, because this week I was listening at a podcast episode with Dr. Gabor Mate. Have you heard of him?
I haven't.
Oh my God. I'm going to send you this podcast episode, because he also specializes on childhood development, and he's amazing. He looks like he's like, anyways, he looks like he's like 100 years old, but he's not, I promise. He's probably like 70. And I'm not a good judge of age, clearly. So never ask me. No, I'm joking. But anyways, he was talking about this book that a caregiver wrote, and she was a caregiver who was giving care to people who were dying, who were in their deathbed. And she talks about the 5 regrets of the dying, of like people who were dying. And the 3rd regret was, I wish I had the courage to communicate my emotions. And the number 1 regret was, I wish I had the courage to live an authentic life instead of the life others expected of me. And I think the work you're doing as a mom, I mean, you're such a role model, because right now I feel such a relief of knowing that I can be also authentic with my kids, and I can talk about how I feel, and I'll be serving as an example to them to do the same in the future, so they don't have those kind of regrets, you know?
Absolutely. I apologize often to my children. I apologize often to my co-parent even, because I am wonderful, I am great, and I am also imperfect in a lot of ways. And I know that, and I recognize that, and I'm okay with that. I deeply have accepted that. I do also accept where I can do better. But one of the hardest things that I do with my children, and moms, dads, parents, try this, but I'm warning you, it's difficult. I ask my children for their feedback in my parenting.
Wow, that's powerful. I got the chills just listening at that. Wow.
And they will tell you the truth.
Kids never lie. Literally, they don't have filter.
They will tell you the truth, and you keep it together a little bit and say, thank you for your honesty. I'm going to go cry now. I'll be back. We're fine. I'm going to go cry now. But it's such an amazing gauge. It's like, if I know that I want to be the best parent that I can be, I need to ask the person who I'm parenting, for feedback in how I'm doing. And I asked my daughter this in August, a little bit before school started. And I've been divorced for 3 years now. And so in the beginning, I was very intentional about having these mommy-daughter days, as well as having these mommy-son days, And so it's been 3 years, and I've asked my daughter in August, I said, so how's mommy doing? What are some things, that she could do better on? And my daughter's so sweet. She's like, well, she knows I need the sandwich method for feedback, for her critiques. She says, well, you're doing a great job. You're really an amazing mommy. These are her words. And she says, but the one thing I think you could do better on is taking me on more mommy and daughter dates.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I said, okay, so I have a deadline, which I still have this deadline, and it's coming up. I said, between now and Thanksgiving, I have to make sure that I take you on a mommy-daughter date, and I also take your brother on a mommy-son date. And she said, okay. And since then, occasionally she'll remind me, she'll drop little hints of like, oh, we could do this on our mommy and daughter date.
That is so cute. I can. That's hilarious. Accountability right there.
Yeah. And I think, the other thing that we don't realize, and because I have experience as an educator And now as a mom, I get to see both sides of that. And what happens is that the mom takes care of herself. She teaches her babies how to take care of themselves. And then they teach their friends how to take care of themselves and how they want to be treated. So to say that it's a trickle down effect, I mean, beyond that, we really have the power to be able to change the generations that are to come by taking care of ourselves. Like, how crazy is that?
That's very satisfying. I mean, clearly, investing in myself was the best decision ever that I took. And I think that's the biggest revolutionary act of self-love and self-worth. And I know you talk about that, you having an experience coaching. How did you, I mean, I feel so many people, they feel that they are at the deepest subconscious level. Maybe they are not aware of this, but what I've found when I dig deeper with my clients is this feeling of they are not worthy of getting help. They are not worthy of receiving the support. They are not worthy of investing in themselves. Everything and everyone else is more important, including what the husband, by the way, I love my husband and I take all decisions with him. And sometimes he needs to understand, hey, I really need this, right? Need this for myself. How did you, when you invested in yourself or asked for help or built your allies network, how did you overcome that feeling and you started believing, yes, I'm worthy of getting this help. Yes, I'm worthy of getting this support. Of course, I deserve this. How was that journey for you?
Yeah. And, it's so interesting that you say that, because as we know, pain can be such a great teacher for us.
Yes, totally.
Whether or not we truly want to accept that. And I think that, like many have said, I was just in pain. And it was like, how do I alleviate this? I'd been familiar with therapy, so I knew that as a modality. I am a self-help girly. Literally in college, I was reading self-help books because I just was so obsessed with like just feeling better, And so for me, I didn't necessarily see it as being something of having to be worthy of. It was like I was having a hangnail and it's just this little irritant. It's like, gosh, I can't wait till this like gets a little bit better or just heals a little bit so that I can feel some relief. And that was what continued to drive me. Just last year, I had a vision about what I'm doing with you here and now. Maybe not this exact thing, but I knew that in this upcoming year, it was going to be time for me to start speaking my truth, to start telling my story. As a Black woman, it's still really hard to talk about being suicidal, about going through depression, and I had to work with my coach. And we had to uncover those layers of shame that I still had around my story. And I really had to see the value in being able to share this and how it could support other people. And that was what, cost went out the window, because I could see how what I need next is going to require me to embody and be a certain type of woman. And this coach is going to help me in doing that.
Heck yes. I think the return when you invest in yourself in whatever it is, whether it's a coach, a course, a book, whatever, I think it's way higher than any investment. I totally agree. And I love that piece about vulnerability so much because I've had thoughts, honestly, in the past of, if I'm too vulnerable with certain things, does that affect my credibility, right? Mm-hmm. And of course, I've worked through it and I'm still working through it. And there are many stories that I cannot wait to tell because no one would ever kind of like imagine me going through those things. And I think the fact that you're doing it is such an inspiration to me, and I'm sure many people listening. And how did you feel when you started talking about that?
I have looked back at the way in which other people's stories have inspired me. From the greats of your, Michael Jordans, to people that have gone through, prison reform systems and just all of those different things, and hearing their story and how much it was able to inspire me, but also normalize the experience, that I was having. And I think in that, I was able to find some action forward. And so it feels really good to be sharing this, because I know, and I get messages from moms all the time of like, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Thank you for sharing, how much it's encouraging them as well to be able to share and open up. And as we know, things are shifting, things are changing, and people are really ready to drop the mask. And be able to allow people to see who they are authentically. And the more that happens, the more we see the oneness, really and truly, is that we see how much more alike we are than different. And more now than ever do we need to be able to see that, so that we can come into community. We can come into allyship really and truly when we start recognizing what our needs are, and we are willing to be open and share our stories, and cultivate that community around us who can respect and honor our truth.
I think that's so powerful. And I totally agree with that. And I think it's a lifelong journey of fully embodying and embracing your authenticity, because, we are like an onion. We are always healing through things. We are working through things. So I think being compassionate in the journey, it's super important as we keep up leveling. Now, Dr. Amber, if you said something really important is to start getting in touch with your body, to start building that awareness. And if we have a listener and they're like, well, Dr. Amber, I was like you. Right now, it's a blind spot. I'm not very in touch with my body. How do I become more aware? And maybe what is a practice that I can do every day to get in touch more with how I'm feeling or what's going on with my body? What would you recommend?
Absolutely. And that's a great question. I had a mom that I worked with about 2 weeks ago. And that was the very thing that we were talking about in our session, of just helping her become aware of how much she was living in her mind, how much she was living in her thoughts, and the ability to be able to pause, do some sort of breathing, and have that awareness that I'm intentionally dropping into my body. And there's so many different exercises. You can, wiggle your toes. You can wiggle your fingers. You can visualize a light coming down from the top of your head all the way through your body. So there's so many different exercises that people can do. I think the number one thing is the awareness, is seeing the pattern of I'm living in these thoughts and that I'm not living in my body. And as we know from books and everything, that our body stores so much of our past and even our trauma. And so it makes perfect sense that we would want to live up here, because to some degree, we may have had to do that just to be able to get to this moment where we are. And now that we are safe, we have to start reconnecting with that safety within our body. And so find some exercises that work for you. At the very least, you can be aware of it and start breathing and dropping back into that and seeing what is coming up, allowing for that to happen, because it will. And then that from there becomes your guide of almost what is there next to work on, what is there next to heal, based on just trying to be present in your body and seeing how long you can stay there.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And you know, there is also this pattern. I used to run it back in 2014 until I had a panic or anxiety attack. And then that was a huge pattern interrupt for me to start listening more at my body. But I used to run this pattern of tolerating pain until the pain became unbearable. And I feel sometimes we have the other extreme of, yeah, I'm aware of my body, cool, but it's okay. I'll just keep going. Oh yeah, I feel my intuition is communicating something, but I'll just keep going. And I think sometimes the voice gets louder and louder because you're not listening until something happens, like an anxiety attack, a panic attack, depression, suicidal thoughts, because we didn't make that decision that was in alignment. We waited until it was crisis or we hit rock bottom. And I think that's a pattern that I see often people running. They don't ask for help until they have really hit rock bottom. I don't know if you experience the same thing in your practice.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And I think that was part of what my journey was to be able to teach me. You know, I literally had gone through that very traumatic experience, and I ran right back into work because I didn't want to still face and deal with some of those things that cause, you know, the depression in the first place. And so, like I said, our pain will be our teacher, and suffering is optional.
Yeah, totally.
We certainly can decide whether or not we want to continue repeating these patterns. It is as simple as a thought and a belief and a choice to do something different that will relieve us of that. And still and yet, I find the awareness of it. Because like I said, I was running for a whole year, traveling and, you know, having the best time ever, or so I thought, only to come back home and be wore down, to be exhausted, you know, to then go into having a marriage transition happen, you know, as a result of so many things. And so we want to just make sure we stay in awareness around what is happening and be able to act on that, not having to allow, you know, the universe to really sit us down in a way before we start making a change.
Beautiful. And you have two beautiful, a daughter and a son, two kids.
Yes.
You have a lot going on in your life. Now you're pursuing this dream of being a full-time coach, of being an entrepreneur. And I know a lot of people ask me this question, can women have it all? Can you have your dream career as a full-time coach, be an amazing mom? Can you truly show up authentically in your relationships? What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely.
Oh my God, I love it. It felt like that voice from heaven, like, yes, God is talking through Amber or something. I love it.
Absolutely. The first thing is that you have to believe that you really can have it all, to one, even be able to experience, to set it in motion, you know, for that to be able to happen. So that's the first thing. I do also think that there are seasons for everything. I think that you are often being prepared for different seasons and chapters, you know, in your life. And really, it's the understanding that in this moment, I have absolutely everything that I need to have here and now. And that's where the deep level of acceptance comes in for me. Because even for me now, you know, I have all these areas of my life that are going so well. I truly still desire partnership again. You know, that is something that I'm actively working on, even with my own coach around that. That would be an area of my life that I could say was missing, but I don't see it as that. I see it as I'm being prepared for that. And in this space right now, I have it all. I have it all that I need and want here and now.
Everything happens in divine timing, my friends. So I'm so excited for you. I mean, I totally agree with you. Like few months back, I had someone relatively close to me tell me, what are you doing? You cannot make money doing what you love, and sometimes people will project their stuff onto you. And I think for the listeners, it's truly, truly important. Like Dr. Amber said, that you develop this belief that, yes, it is possible for me. Yes, I can do it. Yes, I can have it all. That's the mindset, because that's the only way where you're gonna get there for sure.
Definitely, definitely. And being open to really, we have a hard time receiving and accepting where we are right now. We continue to look to the future of all the things that we want to have. And it is so hard to get to that future place without really accepting and loving I don't care what the circumstance looks like, really being able to accept it so that you can then begin to change it. But as we run away from it, or we're trying to run towards something else and we haven't accepted where we are here and now, it makes it that much harder to really call those future things into being right now.
So true, because I think people want the partnership to feel loved. They want the right promotion to feel abundant. They don't want the thing. They want how they think they're gonna feel afterwards. And like you said, those feelings, by the way, you're in control of. You can feel abundant, loved, amazing, peaceful already. And that draws the outcome that you want super fast to you, because you're being the effect, you're being the thing that you want to be without knowing.
Yeah. And that takes time in and of itself.
Total.
I remember when I first heard that concept, it's like, what do you mean I can feel that right now? It's funny now because it's like, truly everything is accessible to me and what I desire to feel. And as you and I both know, it takes time for those things to happen in the material world or in its physical form. And I struggled with that. And I often tell myself, like, Amber, it takes 9 full months, not a month missed, for you to have this healthy baby here. A long time for that to come into fruition. And so with that, this very thing that you are thinking or wanting, are you really allowing it to go through the phases and the seasons and things that it needs to go through to really be prepared to be here and be healthy?
I love that. That's beautiful.
And when I ask myself that, it helps to bring me back here and now and say that I can accept, I can enjoy, I can love what it is that I have right now.
I love that so much. I'm going to remember that for the rest of the day while I rest after this interview. I'm so excited that we finally made this happen. Funny enough, for those listening, so we were supposed to have this interview yesterday, but then I had a minor accident with a dog bite, so we had to reschedule. But for me, it was such a reminder to really rest, because I did something that was not common sense, which means that I'm exhausted, mentally. And I needed to do this because I'm hearing from you, Dr. Amber, exactly what I needed to hear today. So I'm just so grateful that we got to connect, that we got to add so much value to the listeners through your stories. What is one last thought, maybe someone who is struggling with burnout or struggling in this journey, what is one last recommendation, last thought that you want them to know?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm seeing right now, especially in building allies, is first we have to believe that people want to help us.
So important.
That they truly want to help us. And then the second thing to that is that we have to be able to receive that. And that sometimes can be very hard because of how we may view motherhood or how our beliefs around, entrepreneurship or whatever it may be that gets in the way of us receiving that. But I can tell you, people want to help you. They want to support you in motherhood and parenthood. They want to support you in your business. People want to help you. And it's important that we also seek how we can be of service and reciprocate that help. Maybe not even to the same person, maybe to somebody else. They talk about those random acts of kindness, but really and truly, allyship for me and with my community, I want to understand what you need as well and acknowledge and accept your help, and then also be able to support you.
Amazing. I'm going to take that into asking for help, receiving. I think receiving is such an important topic that I see, even in my clients, like a lot of resistance towards, and I think it's deeply subconscious. If our listeners are like, oh my God, I resonate with all of your stories, with the concept, Dr. Amber, how can they connect with you? Tell us about your social media, your website, anything that you want us to know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would love for you all to connect with me on my website. You can find me at www.ambergunner.com. I'm also on social at Dr. Amber Gunner. So please let me know if you as a mom, as a parent, would like to work together one-on-one. We also have workshops available, and please bring your allies as well so that they can learn what your needs are and you can also learn what their needs are.
Amazing. Connect with Dr. Amber. She has amazing content and I highly recommend her. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I deeply appreciate it.
Absolutely. What do you feel like has stood out for you the most?
I think listening at my body even more. Like I have a deep connection with my body and I know when it's asking for help, but I think burnout can be sometimes sneaky. And we were talking about it at the beginning of the interview before we started recording. But when you're an entrepreneur, you have so much of an investment into your baby, which is a business, right? And you want to serve in so many ways. You want to create content that resonates. You want to think about your clients. It's so much giving that sometimes receiving sneaks out of your awareness. And I think it's more of when I hear my body asking for rest, how can I honor that and allow space for that to happen without checking social media, without checking my email, without checking anything, just time for me. I think that's the thing that has resonated the most because it's the thing that I'm going through right now.
And so what have you landed on is going to be your plan of action?
I love that. So yesterday when I got bit accidentally, it was my fault, I promise. And I had to reschedule our interview because I was in emergency at that time. But after that, I think I had 3 more meetings. So I canceled all my meetings. I didn't have any coaching clients, but I canceled all of my meetings to create that space. Even with that, I'm still feeling exhausted today. So after this interview, I'm going to rest more because that's the thing. It's not I'll sleep one night well and rest and then you feel perfect. I think it's like listening at your body after you listen at it for the first time. And I think for me, my plan of action is rest after this call. Something that I thought of this morning is I was implementing this digital detox last week, which is before 7 a.m. and after 7 p.m., I don't see I put my phone in airplane mode, basically. And I think that helped me so much to preserve my energy, because I feel it's so easy to go in social media and then scroll, see everyone. Okay, cool. Oh my God, everyone is achieving something. They probably think the same thing of me. And I think social media detox is a huge one. Social media / email / everything related to digital detox. For me, at this moment, that's what I need. I think that's my main course of action for now. But tomorrow I'll see how I feel and then keep iterating from there.
That is beautiful. And how can I support you in holding yourself accountable this week?
Oh, I love that. If you see me in social media after 7, Dr. Amber is going to be like, let me check if Yanet is online. Now I'm going to be like airplane mode before Dr. Amber kind of messages me. But I think like that social media thing, I love my language. The social media like presence, I think that's going to be the biggest one for me. Like no TV, not that you're in my home and you can know, but no TV, no social media. And maybe, you know what I appreciate from people, like maybe 2 days from now saying, hey, how are you feeling? I think that makes me feel so loved, just like checking in. I think that would be a nice support.
I can do that. I can certainly do that. Thank you for allowing me to be of support to you as well.
I'm receiving all of it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. And
absolutely,
please, to the listeners, if you enjoy this podcast episode, if there were like tips or information that you were truly inspired by, like share with your friends, with your family. If you're a mom or not, it doesn't matter, because at the end, we are all allies. We are all part of that village of people that we continue uplifting each other. I think that's the main mission.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, because yes, we need to remind ourselves, even with everything that we have going on in the world, it is going to be us being able to support one another through it all.
Beautiful, my friend. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the listeners. Thank you for tuning in. And I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I want to invite you to my upcoming free and live masterclass, From Unworthy to Unstoppable. I'm going to teach you how to find the clarity, the confidence, and courage to make your wildest dreams your reality. It's going to happen via Zoom on November 8th, a Wednesday, at 6 p.m. Central. I hope to see you there. Reserve your spot in the link in the show notes. It's free. It's live. Get ready to become unstoppable, my friend. I'll see you on November 8th. Thank you so much for listening at With Clarity and Purpose. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. Sharing is caring. Please share with your friends and family so we can continue building an empowered community together. I'll see you next week.